Okay, I believe now the recording has been started. Um, okay. So apart from this, we have also provided the developers, DB champions, to access to free and SQL also. If anything required change needs to be done or passed through the master UI. Okay. So the freehand SQL would be available to DBA champion developer and you can use. So developers are there, right? Any developers here?
Yes, we are developers, most
Okay.
of us.
Okay, I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the faces, so it's a bit difficult to judge. Okay, so how to use? I'll just give you kind of overview. Okay, so let's connect to any of the master. So let's take maybe Amex schedule scared. Okay,
You're not
so
showing now nothing, yes?
okay, you don't see my screen?
I not see.
I think it has been stopped. Okay, I'm setting it back again. Do you see my screen now?
It's loading.
Okay.
Yeah, now we see.
Okay. So this is the master UI login. Basically, as we are aware that system tables are which the Finastra is responsible for sending the changes, which are checked in and are part of release. But certain time we might need to send data for certain tables which are filled through the GUIs. Generally filled through the GUIs, but we need to send that changes for those also. As those are not system tables, those won't be visible in system tables, and we cannot do the check-in for those. And apart from that, business rules are supposed to be done through as part of setup, and we cannot send check-ins for business setup rules also. So in that case, free and SQL we can use. So this is the tab. It with generally it the managers had access to this earlier. So but now DB champions would be also having. So this could be used to do the send the check-ins for whatever changes are not captured as a system table. Okay, so only thing here we need to remember is any insert we are doing, it's supposed to be along with the delete. First we have to delete the data and then insert. This is important because our builds or our release scripts are rerunnable scripts. Okay, so if delete is not there, then the build will fail, and the release script also might fail if it's rerun multiple times. So whenever the delete is there, it deletes the data and then insert. If delete is not there, then table might generate unique data failure for that table. Okay, so these changes could be done from plain SQL. If table is not visible in this list, even you can do the check-in for that. Only thing, if table is available, then you can select that table and do the check-in. If table is not available, then select first table or any other table and do the check-ins. So it will anyway, it will take the check-ins and it will process to the build. Okay. Only thing is that whenever the free and SQL changes are done, those are not visible in UPGD table directly. Those changes would come to UPGD table only once the build has been taken. Okay, so as soon as you do the changes in the free and SQL, you can't see those in the UPGD. So sometimes we get confused that I don't see the changes in the UPGD. Okay, so this is regarding free and SQL, and DBA champions would be having access to it.
Why I'm not seeing this tab
Okay,
in my
so
master tool? Yes.
okay, so it's we still haven't given the privileges to all the developers. We'll shortly, maybe today or tomorrow, we'll give you the privileges. So you would
Okay.
be having to see it. So once you relog in post to that, you will be able to see that.
Okay.
Okay, so today's session, it's a I know that the second session we haven't conducted it. We'll go through that post these sessions. So we would be going through the session 4 today. It's related to DB builds. It would be not long, it would be maybe short possibly. So what we would be learning today is identify if build is failed in is related to DB or runtime, to identify whether it's for code failure or DB failure. Understanding failure is a temporary failure or whether it's a permanent failure one. Also, we will try to understand what are the failure types, like if failures due to check-ins, we would try to understand what kind of check-ins could cause the failure of DB builds. Okay. So as we all are aware, right, that DB process is it packages releases, right? Whatever the changes we did in database and code, all together it packages into a release script and it provides it to the QA for upgrade. So all the changes for specific view are picked from free, whatever the specific view. For example, if it's a freeze, then freeze master is connected and all the changes which are assigned with CR number and release number is null. So those changes are picked and packaged into a script, and that script is checked in into the purpose. Then similarly, code changes from the purpose or maybe start team are picked, bundled, and sent to the QA. So this is the build process. There are various steps involved in the build process. Most of those are relevant to run team or CM team. Like it start with label validation. It's checks whether whatever the label was provided is valid or not. Then it builds the DB build. Then it creates a label, whatever the new label which was specified. Then it builds application code. Then post that it updates Jira as well. Then it packages. So these are various steps in the build. So DB build is only relevant for us. So we will see when the DB build is failed and what are the reasons for that. So as we are aware in Jenkins, we have for each specific project, we would be having different tabs for triggering the builds. For example, okay, so this is the CTRTP project. I'm just giving various people might be aware of these things, but I would just try to give overview. If anyone is not aware, then they can try to understand. So this is the city specific Jenkins page, which here it's for installing. This is for SCADE, this is for freeze, this is for pre, and this is for prod. So in SCADE they have QA install also, which we saw last time for upgrade and everything. Apart from that, there is a build tab also here. It builds the specific builds for the specific RTP SCADE view. If it's required for freeze, then this will be the job which we need to trigger. Once we go into this job, we'll see various different phases of which we understood for the build, like validate label, DB build, then label creation, code build, then possibly update Jira also, then package. These are all the steps. So when we can see that DB upgrade is failed, specifically when we see this tab, upgrade DB build full. If this is in red, then we say that DB upgrade is failed. DB part of the build is failed, and we need to go to that specific job and see console and see what would be the possible errors for that failures. Let me see if we see any specific failed job here. Okay, yeah, here DB is failed. So this is removed, I believe. I think the jobs are removed from. Okay, let me see. We'll see the first one. Even if it's not failed, then we'll see, because, or let us check with other project. Maybe HSBC MPP. DB build is not failed here, but once we go to the console, we can see all the details of the build, and possibly if there are DB errors are there here in somewhere, they can those changes errors would be visible. So generally, what errors we generally check? Uh, First of all, it should be ORA errors which are DB would fail if it gets these characters in the build, where everywhere, anywhere in the build it gets ORA error, then build will fail, or SP2 errors. If it gets SP2 these characters in the build, it will fail, or if it gets warning, then build would again fail. So whenever if you see that build is failed, then first of all we have to come here, then see the ORA errors or maybe SP2 errors or warnings. So once you see these errors, then you can specifically the section where it's failed, it will specify the failed section, and accordingly we can check what exactly has failed. Okay, so coming back to our slides. Okay, so when we say DB is failed, if it's failed in the DB part, as we saw various different section parts of the DB build. So if it's in a red, then we say it's a failed. Then with the console, we can go to the build and we can check what section it has failed. We will select the console and see the changes. In the console, in the end of the DB section, you can see that failed to run the DB build. So that means it has failed. This message is within the DB build, so it will visible at the end of the DB section. But prior to that, you will get a message in the DB section only, in the build section only, where it shows red color. Okay. Okay, so if DB build is successful, it would be in blue. But if it's failed in other section, that means it's not failed in the DB section. It failed in other section. So accordingly, so such issues needs to be raised with CM team or run team for consulting or fixing it. So generally, various peoples or QA do not understand, and they raise with the ticket with the different team, and by that they might lose the precious time. Basically, because it might take some time to check those section, and then again they might need to go back to the other team. So if we are clear where it failed exactly, then possibly it would be very clear, and we can raise the issues correctly for specific team. Okay, so what are the issues or reasons for DB failures? Basically, most of the time, issues are specific to check-ins. There are various reasons. The technical or wrong check-ins come, or Oracle limited check-ins come, due to which the issue, build fails. There are technical issues where the build had some issues, or build master setup had some issues, or maybe the build code has some issues due to which it fails. In certain projects, it is applicable specifically for Classic. Certain clients like HSBC and Barclays, they have access to StarTeam data.sql. Okay, where they do check-in, keep on doing check-ins on part of there, and build used to pick the changes from data.sql from the StarTeam these files, and customer mostly they do wrong check-ins, their syntax is not correct, or delete insert is not included. So due to that, many times data.sql check-ins are also create issues. As I mentioned, master environment also certain time cause failures and oracle limits. These are the certain reasons with which DB build could fail. So we will see what kind of certain failures are there and which we could or how we can fix those also. Okay. So let us see what are the check-in issues. As I mentioned, data dot is inserted with without delete. Okay, so this is only for classic, not for the ASP, because Barclays and HSBC, they do the check-ins. They have their own development team, their in-house development team, and they keep on doing changes, and they do the changes to these files to specific view. For example, they are doing changes in freeze, they do the check-in to the freeze data.sql, and our build picks those changes from data.sql. Certain time they do not include the delete, and as I mentioned, our scripts are rerunnable scripts, and basically build runs all the picked changes from the master or data.sql or from pre and SQL. All the changes are run 2 times on integration schema. So as changes are run 2 times, first it runs insert runs successfully, next time it generates unique constant error. So delete insert is must, and most time they do the syntax error also. In free and SQL also, we already included code to suggest if delete is not included in free and SQL, but somehow it passes without checking. So that also could raise errors, unique constant error. So we need to make sure that freehand SQL check-ins always should contain proper delete statement, and syntax also needs to be proper one. Okay, as we are directly inserting whatever the insert, update, delete for non-system table or business rule changes. So we should be sure to insert proper syntax error, and check in very long statement, third one. Okay, so in data.sql or in free and SQL, Oracle has limit. Okay, whenever in SQL prompt, normal SQL prompt which used on the for the build, or which we use to connect through the putty, on that prompt, if SQL statement is larger than 2000 characters, then it throws error. So any SQL statement needs to be less. It can be cut down into multiple lines, but single line, if it is having characters more than 2000, then it throws error. So we need to make sure we're not inputting in free and SQL a very long statement in a single line. It's better to cut it down into multiple lines and do the check-ins, so it won't fail in the build. Okay, so this is a very often we get such issues. Apart from that, we get build errors like that. Dependent objects are not checked in. Like there is a procedure has been checked, and it's referencing procedure. Procedure is not done changes, or its referencing tables are not check-ins are done. Somehow it goes through properly in DB master or in the check-in, but while it's being built in the build system, it fails. So we should always make sure that all the required objects are also checked in and are appropriately checked in already into the master. So if any failure occurs due to later on, won't be occur in that case. Okay. So apart from that, message field actions and profile select statements. These are the two tables for which I believe we've sent a script, right? Various code related scripts are checked in into these tables. So basically these two tables have the CLOB data, and whenever check-in is done to these tables, so mostly CLOB object is not checked in directly into UPGD table. What I mean that, for example, you send the script for specific change, and that script is very huge glob, so it resides in message field action only, and UPGD tables, whenever build is being built, it directly picks that glob from message field action, and it do not maintain it in the UPGD table, and it puts into the script. Okay, so many times what happens, developer do insert for these tables, message field action and profile select statement. Later on they delete that from the message field actions. So what it does, as already insert was done and later on it was deleted, the first insert, whenever build is being built, it try to go to message field action and try to fetch that data or clock from message field action, and it do not find that change in that table. Why? Because it was deleted. So in that case, always make sure if you are inserted, do not delete it. Or as already you have the DB champ access, so if you see certain such issues, so you can remove that UPGD entry for insert, basically. Okay. So this is related to clock. Apart from that, unique index creation without handling possible duplicate data. Unique index, or maybe basically for unique key, various time we see such many errors, like developers create the unique index script, it goes through properly in the masters, basically various time master do not contain any changes. Okay, but when it goes to QA or other environments or in the master itself, while being built, it fails with the unique index. Okay, so we should make sure while creating the check-ins, basically for creating unique index or for inserting any other data also, it would be better to delete the proper data and do the check-ins if insert. But if you want to create the unique index, so in that case better option would be to handle the data also. If duplicate data might be already present in bank or client, so better to handle data, maybe delete duplicate, check in the script for handling the duplicate data as well. So that would be the better way to do the check-ins for unique index or other check-ins. So any questions up to now? Anything required more explanation? We will see these things in detail further as well. Okay. Okay, so this is one thing we saw earlier. String literal too long tips. As I mentioned earlier, on SQL prompt, SQL script can have only 2000 character limit. I'm not talking about SQL developer, PLSQL, Toad or other tools. These tools do not have limit, but the normal SQL tool provided by Oracle, which we use on the PuTTY or other tools, if we connect using SQL tool, if any SQL statement, it is more than 2000 character in single line, it throws error. It throws this string literal too long error. Okay, so in that case, always make sure to cut down your statement to multiple lines and do the check-ins, so that with that we won't get these errors. Okay, same errors we also get for globs also. If glob also contain very long statement in single line, it also raise error. So it need to make sure that the statement are cut in multiple lines. Okay, so this is we already discussed for two tables, message field action and profile select statement. So if we insert and then do the delete, then this error is raised. There are other reasons are also for this. But if you see that the data was inserted into message field actions or profile select statement, and then again later on it was deleted, So if you see these data in UPGD tables, then possibly that insert is not getting the CLOB script from the profile select statement or message field action, because it has been already deleted from that table. So that is the one reason you can find out, try to figure out from the UPGD table based on as you get the operation ID. Okay, so any operation ID next or later on to it might have delete to it. So if that is the case, then you can directly remove this insert from there. But if you don't see any deletes for specific that change, then possibly there might be other internal or build environment issues might be there, which we would be able to help you further with that. So this is also very common error which we see many times. Okay. Apart from that, on various accounts, generally freehand SQL or other tools are check the syntax, but on certain account, even if it passed somehow, so it might be syntax error, then we need to validate our syntax. We need to check it in other environment, run it. If it's a valid syntax, then do the checking in the freehand SQL or any other environment. Okay. So this is also again same error, value too large for column. It is also related specific to SQL, which is running more than 2000 character in single line. So generally this we get for cache config table, where the CLOB data is very long, more than 2000. Then we find the specific CLOB, which is the specific operation ID from UPGD based on the length. We find the length of DML text, which is greater than maybe 10,000. And again we check for the cache config, and with that we find certain rows, maybe one, two, three rows, whatever the rows which are very large. Then we cut down those single line SQLs into multiple lines in the UPGD table of that specific master in DML text column. Okay, with that we try to resolve this issue, specifically if it's a value too large for column error. Okay, so these are the unique constraint errors. Basically, if generally it is always recommended, if you are doing insert, you want through the normal check-ins. If data exists, then do the select, delete, insert. If it's a new row, then definitely master would take care of delete, insert itself. But in certain situation, where conditions whatever might be different, in that case it might still raise the unique constraint error. So it's always better to delete and insert if data already exists. So this is unique index. This is specific to unique constraint error, as we saw. This is unique index, and apart from that, earlier we saw that if referenced objects are not did the changes, required changes. For example, we do the check-in for procedure and it refers to certain table and it's a certain column, or it refers to some other procedure also. Somehow it went properly into the master, but when it's implementing in the build and again when it's implementing in the QA, it might fail because that referred column might not present or some other reasons. So these are the errors. Specifically, we will see these errors in the build, like invalid identifier, something related to it. So that means something is wrong with that check-in. So here in this case, SP pump MINF. So this is specifically example which this pump procedure we use for pumping the data, transaction data for large volume testing. So in this case, this pre-MID column is not present. Maybe once we go through that maybe specific package or procedure, So what it is exactly referring, so that column might not present. So we can verify whether that specific column table was did any check-ins or not. So referring with that, we can try to understand, evaluate errors and do the fix. So fix for this would be to introduce that table or change into the UPGD or do the check-in for that. Okay, so any question up to this section? Okay. Okay. So as we understand, if it is failed in the DB section, then definitely it's a failure. It's not temporary, it's a permanent failure. But on various accounts, it might fail in other section. It might fail in validation of label or any other section. So for that, there might be various reasons. It might be proper failure which CM might need to fix, but on certain various accounts there might be network errors, network issues. So retriggering build, it could fix the issue and build could go to the successfully. So on various accounts you need to see whether are there any specific network related errors or anything is there, or if it's failed in the other section apart from DB, you can simply try to re-trigger it. If it fails, then you can check it with the CM team. So these are the various basic reasons with which build could fail. But these are the generic, if it's failing in the database, then these are the generic errors which mostly it fails. So as we start working on this, we'll understand how it works and what could be the fix for it. So based on that, the build could be progressed further. So as we understand, there is a table in UPGD for each master. It contains, we already understood this earlier, I believe, but let me again try to check it. Any questions up to now? Anything needs to be explained further? Okay. Okay, so this is the UPG table of a classic Barclays UK freeze master. So it contains various columns. The important one for us are DML text, operation ID, made by, timestamp, CR number, release number, table number, and maybe yeah, these are the important tables. And object ID is have some data. That means that is a structural change. It's not a data change. If there is a data, it's a null, then it's a data change. If there is anything is there, then it's a structural change. So if CR number is assigned and release number is null, then only changes are picked for the build. If CR number is also null and release number is also null, then changes are never picked. So build to pick any changes, CR number needs to be assigned. Generally, whenever freehand SQL or master UI or BA master changes, should come with the CR number always, and release number would be empty. And whatever change was done is captured into the DML text. So this was the alter table for mandate for adding this column. So this was the change. So all the changes are captured in sequentially. So with this UPGD we can understand, and operation ID is unique one, always have unique data into it. So whenever we fail, we get that operation ID from the build or from the upgrade, and we try to search it in the script or in the UPGD table. Timestamp is always sequential. As the change was done, timestamp is captured. Whoever made the change, his name would be captured here. And one more thing, whenever the change is done from the BA masters, CR number is not assigned. For some cases, only CR number is assigned post post the build is taken. Okay, so if CR number is not assigned, then that does not means that your changes won't go through to the build. So generally, if changes are done from the BA master, then made by would be Oracle or some other user in that case. And once the build is taken, the whoever GPP GUI user, his name would be reflected in Medby. Whoever logged in from the GPP GUI, his name would be replaced in Medby. And whatever the comments were noted in while saving the changes to GPP, those changes would stored in CR number and notes column. Okay. And apart from that, build also fails. Many times people what they do? They do the check-ins to for the nodes in multiple lines. Like while saving through the BA master, they save the multiple nodes in multiple comments in multiple lines. So that also fails in the build. For example, if the nodes column here, if it's contain data in multiple rows, there are some limitations in the build. If data is in multiple rows, it fails. So we also should make sure that we put the nodes in single line itself. And apart from that, various time people insert ORA error, SP2 error, or anything in the nodes or any in the code itself. If that is inserted, then the build will fail for sure. Why? Because build always checks ORA errors, SP2 errors, and warnings in whatever the contents it's progressing. So it finds that error even that is not error exactly, like it's a nodes or it's a or error in the code itself, or in the procedure itself, or in the insert itself. So build consider it as a failure as it see the error. So we should avoid such errors. So how we fix? Generally, we remove those comments from the nodes or from the check-ins, so the build can progress. So these are the certain things with which build fails. So I believe we are through with today's session. So any questions? Anything needs any clarification? Okay, so we are good for today. So as I mentioned, you have all the developer DBA champions would be having access to freehand SQL, so they can do any check-ins for any tables from the freehand SQL with delete insert. And as mentioned, DB champion user is also provided to you, which you can use for investigation, changes to the UPGD tables and other tables also. Okay. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.